I had this when I was doing this, building this talk. I kind of thought, how am I going to introduce this? And I'm kind of, for the people that are playing in the home, as in the home audience, you won't get this joke. For the people in the room, thank you for taking the effort to get up here. Jesus, I didn't think there'd be free training after lunch. I kept going up, and I was like, it's still not here. I have to get to room 1. And apparently it's 10,000 steps just to get here. So that would be pretty cool. Good afternoon. Welcome. This is my first talk in about 2 years on stage. And it is quite nice to be back talking to people. I'm a bit confused by a lot of this because I didn't realize how loud we were when we were all in together, and it's been a bit odd, and not everyone has a little name tag sitting underneath them, so I have to remember your name when you say it to me, and it's kind of confusing. So thanks for coming back. Thanks for joining us today. This talk is on building teams, security culture, and creating international incidents. My name is Niall, and I am a strategic customer technology lead at Microsoft. That means I have a very fancy title of saying I am a CTO from Microsoft to one of our strategic customers. In my case, it's Equinor. And I help them with a lot of their technology concepts, decisions, in acting as a sounding board, etc., to different people. And it's kind of a cool title, kind of an extremely fun job for me to do. Previous to this, I used to run cybersecurity operations in Norway for Capgemini. I do have an unhealthy obsession with cybersecurity, wine, whiskey, Lego, watches, a lot of stuff beginning with W. And I wanted to do a talk that is a little bit more of an opinion piece. This is not something you will learn a lot about, but I'm just going to put forward some thoughts and ideas that I've had over the last 20 years working in IT and InfoSec, where if you are in different parts of your career, what you want to try and do, what worked for me, what didn't work for me, and maybe some advice that'll kind of help you get to where you want to be quicker. So before I start, I'm going to show you a picture of the All Blacks. Now, you may not be familiar with this game. It's called rugby. It's where 15 men run after a small egg-shaped object called a ball and try and kill each other. The All Blacks are from New Zealand. They are considered the best team in the world. And rugby does not have rules. It has laws. Like, if you ask someone what are the rules of rugby, they'll say, there are none. My wife asked me, are there any rules? I said, no, honey, they're laws. And she goes, what do you mean laws? I said, every referee quotes the law of rugby. The All Blacks are rugby lawyers. They look for every single loophole in every single game to try and exploit to get better. Every time they find a new way of playing the game, we write a new rule or law to stop them. Okay? They are effectively the red team of rugby. All right? And it is a really cool thing, and you'll be probably wondering why I'm showing you a rugby team, but it has a lot to do with my story. Because you're probably also asking of like, who the hell are you? And that's usually what happens when I wake up in the morning, and I ask myself the same question. Are you qualified to give a talk about this? And I think I am, because I kind of had a lot of experience across different sectors, different areas, and I've had to move countries and do different things. And what I'm going to tell you is to show you a little bit of my personal background, show you what I did, and then let you kind of figure out if I'm actually qualified or not. And to do that, I need to go back a little bit in time, and we're going back to 9/11. This is a date that everyone knows. It's very well remembered because of an infamous attack in New York. It's also 2 days before I graduated from university. I remember being in my local campus. I was working on contract for the computer science department at the time, and I noticed we had a T1 internet connection at that time, which was like 1 gigabit per second, when everyone else was using like 1 meg dial on ADSL 2. So that's how old we're talking about. If you don't recognize the terms I'm using, if you're too young for that, Google it and laugh a little bit at what we had to deal with for what we call the internet, right? But I remember this because the fact is that a couple of things went through my mind. One, this was extremely terrifying and scary at the time. But two, I was like, I won't have a job. And it's a bit selfish and it's a bit cynical, but a lot of people, when they graduated from university, would go and emigrate to the States, work for American companies, conglomerates for a couple of years, and then come home. But that meant that all those jobs went because American companies stopped importing Irish people and importing Irish jobs because this had happened. So a lot of their offices, everything shut down. People were not going to be moving. It meant a much more difficult time for some of us to try and find work. I was lucky enough I did, and I found work working as a consultant, and I was working on software for the Irish government. I helped design the document management system that was in use by a lot of the local authorities like Kommuna and Fylkes in Norway for their document management. And I was working in a language called Watango, and it's a XML-based business language. And I got asked, did I want to go to Australia? And I thought, this would be pretty cool. And so I went all the way down to Australia via Thailand. There we go. Took a little bit over there, bounced around, a lot of drinking, went over to New Zealand, and then disappeared over to South Africa. Now, New Zealand is where I discovered that Norway existed. I didn't know about Norway at that time, but I'd heard about it, but never really met anyone from there. And I met a beautiful woman from Norway along with her friend who were traveling, and we hit it off. We had a good time, great times, all those, blah, blah, blah. And we ended up kind of dating over 2 years. And I went from South Africa all the way up to Ireland, and then from 2 years back and forth to Norway. And I was thinking, this is kind of bad, and it's bad for the environment, honey, if I keep flying back and forth. It's also bad for my wallet. And I said, would it be, I want to move. And she says, and she's so Norwegian. It's just like, how do you insult a Norwegian woman? You offer them your seat on the train, and they will give out to you. They're so fantastically independent. But she goes to me, she says, Niall, if you want to live in Norway, you are going to need a job. I'm like, okay. And I said, why? She goes, can I just live with you? And she goes, I'm not supporting you. I'm like, okay, cool. Line. I said, okay. And number 2, you're going to need your own friends. You can't have mine. I said, what? She goes, you're going to need a social network. You're going to need friends. You're going to have people to talk to. I'm like, okay, cool, all right, fine. So I sent in a CV. I remember, I think it was something just before Easter. I sent in a CV to a recruitment company in Norway at 11 o'clock in the morning, my time, so 10 a.m. or at 12 a.m., midday. I don't know which one that is. 12, and 15 minutes later, the lady says, can you come for an interview in half an hour? I said, no. She goes, why not? I said, I'm in Ireland. And she goes, you not in Norway? I said, no, not in Norway. And she goes, when will you be in Norway? And I said, in May. Okay, we'll do the interview then. I'm like, that's nice. I was didn't know what was going on. What I didn't realize at the time was I had about 7 years of experience, a lot of certifications, etc. I was a very experienced developer by many accounts. And there was a labor shortage for experienced ITs and developers. And so I came up and did 7 interviews in 2 days across 7 different companies. And I got 7 job offers. I felt myself extremely proud. All right, I thought, I'm really smart. And my wife's going, no, you're not. She's my girlfriend at the time, and we're married now, but she's still got that sense of humor. But one thing that struck me from every single interview I did, there was the question, what would you like to do? I was like, I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. Because in Ireland, when you go for a job interview, you say, I can do this. And they go, we need that, we'll hire you. In Norway, it says, what would you like to do? I'm like, stuff. So who's literally, what do you want me to do? It was a long conversation back and forth. You can see I wore them down at the end. And a very smart woman that was interviewing me she says, you can be whatever you want. And I thought, this is amazing. I get a chance to reinvent myself. So I became a security person. And I discovered in Norway, having come from Ireland, which is very different to Norway at times. You may remember it from your visits about 1,000 years ago. You weren't exactly pleasant. We remember. You're all laughing nervously. We tremble a little bit. Norway has a very different view of security than the Irish do. And I kind of felt that it was something that wasn't really being discussed. I had worked with InfoSec in Ireland, and then I discovered that it was something that wasn't really being discussed in Norway. So I kind of thought, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to make myself different from everyone else here. And so I started talking about it. I started promoting it internally. I built my own brand and my network around it. And I eventually became a Microsoft MVP, and I became a regional director. And it kind of ballooned, and I got speaking, and I did a lot of other stuff, and it worked for me. Now, that's my background of how I got here. But before I kind of tell you about what we're going to do with security culture and security teams, I have a couple of things I want to talk about because some stuff may not work. I have some caveats. Number one, I am, as you can see, a white 40-year-old male. Okay, cool. At the time when I was doing this, I was a middle 30s white male. It means some of my experiences may make sense to me and will work for me. They may not make sense to you. However, that does not mean they are wrong. It just means that you can use them in whatever way you want to. As an opinion piece, you may not agree with some of the things I'm going to say. You may find them hard to believe, or you may say, that will never work. That's cool. That's what an opinion piece does. Number two, jag är utlänning, but I'm not foreign. And in security, that is, for the poor English person here, I've just translated I'm foreign, but I'm not foreign. For certain jobs in this country, it says you must hold or be able to hold security clearance. I can do that with certain restrictions, but if you are from a country that doesn't allow that, it means that certain jobs will not be open to you or certain things will not be open to you. This caused a bit of fun for me because I was running a security team where I had people working for the Norwegian army, and they were working on a project that I couldn't ask them about. They couldn't tell me about. And when we came to personnel review time, I said, how's your job going? Great. Can you tell, what is the most important thing you've done in the last year? Can't tell you. Okay, but I deserve a raise. Okay, why? Can't tell you that either. It was a good conversation for 5 minutes. It was quite fun, but it's just an example. And it just means that there's certain things that may not apply to everybody, okay? So when we talk about building culture within an organization, it's difficult because you kind of, how do you start building a culture? It's not like it's something that happens overnight. It takes time, you've got to evolve it. It takes usually one single instance of something to spark it off or create that thing. And very often you are required to have a very good brand within an organization to do this. Now, building a brand around yourself is time-consuming and hard. And it is a thing that I think that people need to actually do within our security in community, is build certain brands because it opens up certain other doors for you and makes it easier for you to do your job. I want to kind of take a little bit of time to talk about how to build a brand. And I'm going to use a very good subject who's happened to be sitting in the front row here. And I'm going to talk a bit about some of the speakers we're seeing here today. Every single one of these speakers has a brand. When you think about who am I going to talk to about OAuth, Dominic Beyer will be one of the first people I would say, yes, that is the person I should talk to. Considered a world expert on it. Victoria Cloud. Scott, I would say HPS and certs and CSPs, but like all these people have a very specific area that they are considered the expert in. They're knowledgeable about a lot of other areas, but the thing that they are good at is very specific. Now, this is Scott, okay? I picked the best picture I could find of Scott with his clothes on. But you'll notice that Scott has, on the top it says BBC, okay? It takes a lot of effort to get here, but this is part of the brand. And what I want to do is take you back to about 2015 when I sent a DM to Scott, and I would like to highlight a very important part here, and hopefully this will work. Let's see if this does. Yeah, it says, NDC would be a big step up. Okay? Back in 2015, this man thought that speaking at NDC would be the top and highlight of his career, which I thought was awesome, all right? But over the course of about 6 years has become an internationally recognized expert. What I want to point out a little bit here is this now where he's at. You can see the solar panel on the back of his head. That's the amount of effort that this has taken on him. Okay? I did say it would be nice to you. I did. I didn't say how nice, though. So if you're watching the live stream, he's sitting right there. It's quite fun. And he has now gone bright red. But I do want to point out, so one of the things I was saying about brands, in the course of 6 years, I know the amount of effort this man has put into creating a brand around himself. I know the amount of time he spent away from his family and the amount of effort has been commitment. We have sat down for dinner on a number of occasions where he's literally had to step away and answer a call or answer an email, a tweet, or something to that effect because there is something happening within our business. And this takes its toll, but it also means that you can be worldwide recognized, but it may not, you might not want to do that level of commitment. But when it comes to building within your organization, building a brand where people come and ask and trust you. Like Scott mentioned last night, you are now a trusted witness for the state, for the UK, right? That's a fairly heavy thing when someone comes in and says, the judge goes, please explain to me why they're idiots or why that couldn't have happened. Well, Your Honor, the blockchain doesn't work like that. And he goes, but this is important to recognize that when you build a brand, when someone of that caliber says something, it takes a massive amount of effort to get there, okay? I've just skipped a slide, I'm sorry, I've just missed a beat. The amount of effort to do this is quite a lot. Now, you don't have to go this level of depth. You can be considered an expert within your organization. You can be considered the person that you go to when there's a problem or they ask to. If you think about within your orgs and within the companies you work with, who do you ask? And they've built that because they're the person that they generally answer those questions. Now, when people who are considered experts speak, people generally tend to listen. When we're building security culture, especially where you have to tell people, no, you can't do that. No, you shouldn't do that. Or one of the things that really annoys me is like when I go to the dentist, they go, do you floss? And I went, do you change your password regularly? And you can see us like there's a battle of wills. Now I'm on the losing side because that person usually has a set of dental tools inside my mouth. And I'm like, is this gonna hurt? Is this your password? The joke is that there's a lot of effort goes into it. There's a lot of, we should listen to the people, what they say. But very often when an expert says this and tells you you're going to have to do this, they're more likely to listen. And that is a very important part of when we're building a security culture, because when you go out and you say, you should do something that is different, maybe a little difficult, people will listen because they respect and understand that you have the expertise in it. I think there is a massive problem in IT right now, and especially in IT security, that we are grumpy and willing to put the blame on users. This needs to stop. This is very important for me because the fact is people don't like being told that they're idiots. They may have done something wrong, but no one likes to be told, oh my God, I can't believe you clicked on that, you idiot. Why did you click on that? What kind of triggered you to learn, or what happened? What misfired? What didn't work for you? How many of us have, when we've seen emails, go, I'm not too sure if this is a regular email or a phishing email? For those of you in the business, you'd probably be like this, okay, yeah, and why? Because you have a gut feeling on it, you kind of know, but there's other people who will take email at face value and click on it. But why will they do that? And then they're afraid if they go and tell someone, I made a mistake, they will get someone coming up and saying, you're silly. My dad worked in a business that when you did something wrong, they automatically put the blame on you, and it became very difficult to change something. And a case in point I noticed was, I came home to Ireland, it was back in about 2018, and I rock up, and I noticed there was something wrong with the computer upstairs. It was acting a bit slow, sluggish, everything was a bit off. And so I went down to my dad and says, do you know what happened with the computer upstairs? And he goes, you must have broken it. I'm like, now my dad refers to the computer upstairs as the mainframe. And I go, are you sure you want to take this fight with me? And he goes, yeah, it was probably your mother. I went, okay, I'll take that. I said, I don't care what happened. I don't care who did it. I don't care who did what. I just want to know what happened. And he goes, well, I don't know, it's been acting a bit funny since, and I think someone might have clicked the link. And I said, okay, just show me what happened. Show me what we went through last. And I noticed that someone had downloaded a free, disk writing software that it was, when you opened it, it ran some cryptoware or whatever. And I was like, okay, that's what's happened. We're okay. And I said, I'll put something in place that'll stop from next time. But it is important for us to remember that if people are going to trust you as the expert, A, they want to listen to you, but B, you also have to be welcoming to allow them to come to you and say, I made a mistake, how can you help me fix it? Cool. We should then kind of use more carrots rather than sticks. I am a vicious opponent of phishing tests. I feel that they make you feel very stupid. Yes, it is good to learn what is phishing, but the idea of getting phishing tests into your inbox to try and trick you, I feel is kind of counterintuitive to making a good security culture. It's hard. The business we work in is hard. There's a lot of moving parts. If you ask any front-end developer how much it goes into their front end, you can see it straight away. There's a huge amount of stuff. Every day people are dealing with new technologies, new stuff that's changing, and then we're adding a phishing test that makes you go, haha, if you fail this, you got to go do a 3-day course on why you're so silly and can't recognize email. What I think should happen is more of a case of, if you fail a phishing test, listen, this was a test, we found you didn't, this is what you should watch for the next time. And highlight so people learn. If you were to be taught how to drive the same way we teach people about InfoSec, no one would ever drive. Probably good for some people, but for the rest of us, we'd still be complaining that no one could drive. It's a very important part that we just stick with the carrots, we kind of do some new stuff. We reward good behavior. Don't punish bad behavior, but reward good behavior. Security culture then will become more acceptable, and people will then think of themselves and understand where they sit in the big picture. That is a core part of people understanding how to be better at security, is if they understand where they sit in the big picture of what they do. I had to explain to someone, I said, you clicking a link may cause all the rest of us not to get paid. Because if ransomware hits and all our financial systems go down, no one can be paid. I didn't realize it like that. I said, yeah, but it might cost, $50,000, $100,000, $200,000, X number of dollars, but you making a statement. But what I can say is, if you're unsure, come and talk to us and we can protect. It's a much better way than saying, if you click an email, you're an idiot. If people understand the consequences of their actions, they will understand better how not to do that the next time. It's a core part of when we're trying to figure out how to train people. I find that we are a bit old school in our thinking very often when we talk about IT, that we say, if you don't know what you're doing, you're an idiot. But I think if the people understand why they're doing certain things, they will make it better. One thing I learned to drive a motorbike when the first thing I ever learned to drive was a motorbike. And the first lesson I had, guy comes up all the full Fox gear, all very happy, and he's like, so Niall, you want to drive a motorbike? I went, yeah. Do you have an organ donor card? I'm like, why? He goes, it's the quickest way to die, is this thing. And I said, you're not really selling it. And he goes, no, I'm just telling you the truth. Imagine you're driving a normal car. And I went, cool. Except you put a 2-meter spike this far from your chest, and if you make a mistake, it's through your heart. I'm like, well, that doesn't sound like fun. He goes, these things are great. It's all the other people on the road that are insane. And I said, why are you telling me this? Is so you understand the complications, the implications of what you're doing. It also makes you a safer driver. I've discovered since then that my head is on a swivel when I'm driving because I'm always assuming everyone's trying to kill me. Right? But he put it in context of why I should understand this particular thing for me to make me a better driver. And it is something I've always learned and always reminded myself. And when I talk to my son, when he doesn't understand something, I try to explain why. And he asks why. But very often we go, oh, just because. Explain the why, and people will join and be better for it. And we should make that security is the norm. Now, I'm putting up this picture because I was trying to figure out what is the most crazy normal thing in Norway. This is the most crazy normal thing in Norway. Now, for the foreigners in the audience, these things are Russ. These are people who are about to finish their high school. This is about a month before their final exams, and they spend the entire month partying. When I came to Norway, I was like, You what now? In Ireland, what happens is this. You have your final exams, like the A grades, Leaving Cert, Baccalaureate in France. You panic, you study, you're never going out, you never see your friends from May till about the end of June. And then in July, it's madness. In Norway, they go, well, it's springtime. We better all wear the same suit for the next month and go partying. It was until my wife explained, they have most of their grades got at this stage, so their final exams only account for a small amount. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But I couldn't understand how this was a thing, but it's very normal in Norway. For the rest of us, it's insane. So you should when I'm thinking about when you're making your security culture, it should become normal that people come up to you and talk about security culture with you. When I used to work in Capgemini, we had two segregated areas where you had like your normal, your kind of visitor area, and we had our other place on top. And if I saw someone walking around without a badge, I would kind of go up and say, hi, I'm Niall, how's it going? And they go, hi. Why are you talking to me? I said, you new here? And they go, yeah. I said, cool. I just didn't see a badge. I just didn't know who you were. Oh, right. I said, if you don't wear a badge, we can kind of get fined because, for audit and whatever, and people will have to do a ton of work. Oh, I didn't know that. Cool, I'll put my badge back on. And someone would come up afterwards and goes, did you talk to the Irish guy? And they go, yeah. Do you know he's the director of cyber? Oh, is that why he was talking to me? I said, yeah, that's what he's talking to. He's just very nosy. But it became very cool and a very normal thing that people would normally then have and understand the segregation of where they were supposed to be. And it became normal. People understood. And the security culture then grows. But to build a proper security culture, you're going to need a good security team. Now, I'm going back to the rugby thing here again for you. This is the Irish women's rugby team. Rugby is considered of 15 players. Each player is a specialist in what they do. All 15 have to play as one for you to win. Much like a security team, there's going to be a lot of different experts in different places, and they all have to move together for you to perform as a good team. A core part of picking a good team is to understand the mix of seniors, juniors, and in-betweens. Okay? And we very often hire for skills. I need a specific skill. I want a specific level of experience. We normally hire very senior people within InfoSec because people trust, as we talked about the expertise, people trust when you have a lot more experience in this because they want to know you've lost fingers to the war. However, I want to introduce you to a little bit of a story time now. And let me introduce you to Ellen. Now, Ellen has a very interesting story when it comes to joining InfoSec. When I met her, I was being introduced by my second in command, one of my lieutenants. Now, the people in my team all had different roles, and they all have different responsibilities, but a lot of the time I would let our more junior people interview the incoming applicants, especially if they were very new, so they would get a feel if this person was actually anyway good or not, because the gap between a person who's 20 years in the business and the person who's 2 years in the business is huge. But the gap between someone who's 4 and 2 is not so bad, and people will understand what it's like to be there. Now, Ellen came in, and I was told by Martha, one of the people I worked with, she said, you have to interview her. I said, why? Now, I trust my people, and I said, but just tell me why. Well, she's got a real good desire for this, and she's also she's a Trønder. I went, is that a good thing or a bad thing? And she goes, it's a good thing. And I went, okay. And so in comes Ellen, and Norwegian woman, and she starts speaking with an Aussie accent. Now, for me, who is a native English speaker, I kind of enjoy when I hear the accent of where it comes from because it's kind of cool. And she's speaking a little bit kind of shy and whatever. And I said, this will be a conversation, not an interview. And she goes, I don't understand the question. And I talked to her and I says, okay. Looked at her CV. She was a hairdresser, had gone back to school when she was 32, graduated, and I was like, okay, you've got a and you've been working 4 years now as help desk in SR Bank, or as I like to call it, Hell Desk. Yeah, I've got to get rid of that comment. And I said, okay, tell me why you want to do this. Oh, I really want to kind of get into this. And I said, fine. Here's a technical question. It is okay to say, I don't know. I always prefix that because very often when you don't tell people they can say, I don't know, they will wander off in a kind of hitting themselves off every door they can find. So I say, it's okay to say no and don't know. And she goes, blah, blah, blah. And she says, I don't know. I went, cool. Tell me how you'd find out. Well, I'd probably ask you. I'd probably ask members of the team. I'd Google a little bit, or maybe it's Microsoft, I'll Bing it a little bit, Google it with Bing. That's actually a thing, isn't it? It is. Sorry, off track. And I said, well, and then once I got an idea, I'd validate it with probably someone else in my team, and I'd continue on. I said, fantastic answer. She goes, really? And I says, yeah, because you've shown, yes, there's something you don't know. Because has anyone ever come up with every single problem they've ever gone and go, I know exactly what that is, and I know how to fix it? Or do you gotta Google it? Every one of us has done it. And it's a skill, don't get me wrong, a skill of knowing how to find information is good. I said, okay, tell me about who is your security hero, or it's kind of who you are. She goes, I really like Troy Hunt. I was like, oh, well, okay. It's minus points. Troy's not here today. We raised a glass to you. Sorry, we miss you, Troy. You know. And I was like, okay, fine. So I talked to her. I said, listen, I can't hire you as a consultant. You could see like, oh no. I can hire you as an intern, but you won't be an intern. I will try and fast track you through. It's going to take a lot of work because I want you to kind of do stuff and I want you to continue. And I thought, she goes, okay. So she became part of my team and did an extremely cool job. And this is her now in 2020 talking about blue team and governance and risk. And I feel like I talked to her quite a bit and I say, how are you feeling? She goes, it's a fantastic thing to see how my career is growing and doing new things. But I always remember the idea that, you know, it's okay to say, no, I don't know something. I said, yeah, when you go in and you say you don't know something, it shows a certain amount of confidence that you're willing to say, I don't know. But she has continued on. And what I think is an important part of this is we very often in InfoSec and IT very much try and get the very senior people in. We are going to have to hire a lot more juniors to cope with the necessary needs of the future in this business. And we should be looking at parts of the potential. Now, it's probably cliche. You know, they say potential beats talent when talent doesn't work, okay? But I think that you also should look at the potential of people to do things. There's a lot of things I've always said that within InfoSec, you get people that are coming in very much junior. They have either a cybersecurity degree, which is fairly new, or they're transferring out of 6 or 7 years of a particular core part, such as development, infra, something like that, and then moving into InfoSec. Probably all have seen that or experienced that at some point. So we should start looking at the potential of building these teams up and then look at something like the Dreyfus model of skills acquisition. Now this is a pretty interesting thing because you will see, and I have to use this side because apparently this is the only one the internet sees, right? It goes from novice the whole way to expert. All of us have been the novice and all of us at some point may feel like we're possibly the expert. We may not fully know. And if you're Norwegian, you will very often say you're not the expert because of janteloven, which is kind of cool. But very often we'll find ourselves proficient. Experts are those people when you get that gut feeling of like, oh, that's not right. You need to do this. I wouldn't do that because historically X, Y, Z. You have some knowledge that it doesn't need specific rules. You can look at something and go, there's something wrong there. You know there's something going to go wrong. What is very interesting about this is when you start building teams with this in mind. Now we're going to play a game, kids. And we call it Dreyfus Squared. Okay? So, let's play Ask the Audience. I know I said you're going to ask the audience, but it'll be hypothetical because Norwegians don't answer questions. Maybe Scott is not Norwegian. Scott, this is all on you, mate. What happens when you put a novice and novice together in a team? Anyone want to take a guess? Shout out and I'll repeat it.
Terrible code.
Terrible code. That's possible. Cool. Yes? You get one advanced beginner. I was not expecting that. Cool. What you get is, I don't know, when you put novice and novice together, no one knows what to do, so no one knows where to go. They both sit there going, this is nice. It's like asking my children to tidy up their rooms. They look outside and go, this is the first time I've ever done this. Where do I start, Papa? There with that sock. What do I do with it? You put it in the basket. Where's the basket? In the bathroom where you left the other sock. Okay. And it's like that's what'll happen. What happens when you put two advanced beginners together? You start learning. You get mayhem and chaos. Why? Because, now you get really cool playtime. They go bananas together because they're all experimenting. They have an idea of where they want to go. They're trying to break the boundaries. They're trying to get towards competent. but don't release the code. It'll be chaotic. It'll be literally, you know the one where the picture from XKCD, when they talk about like, how open source works, and there's that like one little small brick maintained by one person in Alaska. That's their code. It'll be all madness. It'll work in a very specific, think Doc Brown, they're mad. Novice and competent together. You'll get guidance. Because the competent has an idea of where you are, where they want. Novice wants to learn and will continue learning from a competent person who knows what it's like to be a novice. If you put a novice and an expert together, you'll get, shitly, or as what my kids would describe it as. The novice will say, why won't you teach me? And the expert will go, why won't you learn? Because they don't know the difference. The expert doesn't require rules, but the novice does. And this has been extremely, this has been a guide for me as a parent. I lost it when my son was going, I can't believe you don't know how to do washing up, how to wash a cup. And I was like going, he's never had to wash a cup. How the hell is he going to know how to wash a cup? So I just show him how to wash a cup. Now I'm always reminded of when guys move out of home, away from mammy. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a washing machine. You may never have seen it before. And they're looking at it going, I don't know what to do with this. Opens, knobby goes. Does anyone know how to work one of these things? Very often, because they've never had to do it. Now there could be 18, 20, whatever, 35, I don't know. But it's very often you see that. You see this, when you've never had to do it before, and you're someone who's an expert at it, goes, I can't believe you don't know how to do this. We forget sometimes we have to actually teach and train. And that's where the expert and things like that. If we look at this now in a kind of, with the different kind of areas, we'll see this. As I say, advanced beginner and advanced beginner together, we'll get mayhem. Now, if we're down in competent and competent together, we start with things like debate. You can think about this, when you have people who know what they're doing, they start talking about whether this framework is good or that framework is good. Why is the benefits of this? They start thinking and they're looking for new ways. They're thinking about their stuff. They're discussing, they're working stuff out, okay? If you put proficient and proficient together, very often they just don't know. They're kind of, yeah, we're okay. But expert and proficient is confidence. And this is a very cool thing. This is why when you find like people who are in a very high level and they get a more senior person with them together, they start having, I get validation of what I'm thinking is correct, and the other person gets validation that what they're providing is good. When you're building teams, for security teams, put your novices with your competent people. Don't put them with your experts. It's the quickest way to lose people. Both sides get frustrated. If you have advanced beginners together, keep an eye on them. It's like teenagers and alcohol, okay? It's gonna be crazy, but it's very cool because they're doers. They're gonna have a load of fun together. You'll probably have recognized this in your career at some point where you've probably met people, you've done this, and it's a very cool way of helping you build good core competent teams together, all right? And for me, it's a core part of when we're building teams out. We will need a lot of experts, but the thing is, experts are only good when the people below them are proficient. Because they're team leads. And they kind of said, I was such a good developer, and then they made me a manager. I'm not a happy bunny. So a lot of this, but this is just as I said, an opinion. Some people go, that won't work for us. Other people go, that makes total sense what we're doing. You'll find that your mileage may vary. And when you're doing all this, create a common goal together. A common goal allows everyone to walk towards the same place. The experts will know what they're trying to drive for. The novices will now have a set of rules and figure out the road ahead of them. One of the things when I was running with Capgemini, I tried to connect to all the different security companies and different other vendors, etc., around Norway. And I had my simple thing was, I don't care who wins as long as Norway is safe, as long as we're all safe. So I talked to the different other, even competitors, and I went, if something goes wrong and we find it is on your side, we'll let you know. We might even lean in and we might even help you out if you need it. And it was a kind of reciprocal thing, mainly to ensure that with security people is trying to kind of keep everything together. It's very often it's a weird thing when you're doing defense. You always try and make sure everyone's protected. And it might be just because of my own personality type. I did a kind of, you do these kind of different PAPI tests and whatever. And one, they said you are a defender profile. It means you like to try and make sure everyone's protected and included. I also have what they said was a diplomatic educator. If I can't get my way, I will teach you why it's right. I still haven't figured that out with my wife. She is awesome. But a common goal together allows the team to grow. They all understand where their roles are. They all understand what we're trying to achieve. And it's a good thing to help, along with the culture, get the buy-in together to make it work together for you. Now, things will not always go right. And this is where we get to the funny sides of the stories. Incidents happen, mistakes happen, things happen. It is very difficult in our business to survive if I would say, sorry, let me start again. It is very rare in our business that everything will go well for you. I will say that. Now, I have Scott to blame here again. Back in 2018, we were down in London for NDC London, and we were sitting in a bar having a drink, because no good story says I started out saying I was eating a salad. We're sitting having a drink, and Scott was talking about certificate transparency logs in the middle of a bar. He's that intelligent and special, that cool. I need to get cooler friends. And I was like, explain this to me. He says, well, whenever you time a certain thing, it's put onto a log. And I said, that's a really cool idea. I wonder, could you use the names of these to kind of go and find information? He goes, speaking of which, I heard of a new thing where a person had built this thing to find Amazon S3 buckets using their certificate transparency logs. I said, do explain. And he goes, young man, let me explain. And he says, traditionally, we use, for going to find S3 buckets, for those of you familiar with AWS and S3, normally what it is a name.s3.amazonaws.com, and that's the name of your bucket. It's where your storage, your blob storage, or whatever goes in there. And he said, normally what people do is to find these names is they put out common names, or they use the Alexa top 1 million addresses, use those to find production names and prefix. And I said, that sounds cool. And he goes, yeah, but it's the same list all the time, so everything that's been found has been found, type of thing. And I went, okay. He says, what the new thing is to use the certificate transparency log, which is what happens when every time a new HTTPS certificate is generated, it's appended to this log. Use the name of the domain as a method for finding where things are going in S3. Because if you think about it, how do you name things? Name of company, name of product, -prod, -dev, -test, -01, test dash, it's all this very common things. And when you understand that pattern, you go, haha, I can go find that. If you know what you're looking for, you can go find it. So this was pretty cool. I said, does this exist? And he says, yeah, the dude has released the code on GitHub. And I said, that sounds interesting. And then there's another, and this was called Bucket Stream. It's still there. And then he said, well, they've also then, I said, that's pretty cool. So I started investigating this. And I figured out if I got Bucket Stream and found a load of buckets, I could then use it into a thing called Bucket Finder to find the contents of the bucket and pipe all that into SQL Server to go find and make something that we could do recon with. So when you're doing red team work, it's kind of cool. So this is Bucket Stream in action, just to show you how it's not a fictional piece of story. And I'm hoping that's playing. It is. Excellent. It's a very complicated command. It's called something bucketstream.py -l. And it started basically querying the certificate transparency log, and then started querying buckets with those names. And you'll see after a second, it'll just now pipe in, and it'll have found some buckets that are open, etc. And it tells you the access control list for that particular bucket in real time. So I was outputting this data into a thing called Bucket Finder, which then allowed me to list the contents of that and then pipe that into SQL Server. With me so far? That is 3 tools, Google-ish, 1 Python tool, 1 second Python tool, and outputting stuff into, and piping stuff into SQL. Would we consider that complicated? That's a yes or no answer now. No. It's okay to say you don't know. No, good, thank you, that's the correct answer. Well done, you sir, in the front row. So, what happened next? Niall found a particular bucket with So, company name -prod.s3.amazonaws.com. And inside was 46,000 files. I went, it's got a prod, and I thought, okay, this is possibly something weird. Clicked on the first link. Turns out it's a minion from Minions, Gru and all those, little yellow dude. I thought, okay, cool, it's just a demo site or whatever. Clicked on the third link, it's an ID card for a Thai citizen. I'm like, it's not good. It's not good at all. So I go, okay, and I do a little research. I found out the company name is TrueMove. It's a telco based in Thailand. And I contact their IT department and said, listen, I found this. This is probably not meant to be out in the open and fully accessible to the world. You might want to close this. The answer I got was, we don't understand the question. We don't have an IT security department. Please ring the company between business hours of 9 and 5 in Thailand. And I'm like, okay, not what I was expecting. Now, lucky enough, I've got a network, so I asked Scott, I said, listen, man, I have this thing, I'm trying to figure out what to do. And he goes, do you know what? Sometimes it's a little bit helpful if you get a journalist involved, they'll help you get people moving because no one likes bad press. I said, that sounds like a great idea. It wasn't a great idea. That sounds like a great idea. Now, no offense to John Layden or Scott on this, it's part of the story. And eventually a month later, on Thursday the 12th, the bucket was closed and tidied up, and John published this on the Friday the 13th, as you can see, at 11:15 UTC. Okay? Now I thought, this is cool. I've been on Krebs, I've been on the register, my job, my branding is done. I'm awesome, I'm happy. Saturday morning, Niall wakes up, his entire Twitter stream is in Thai. And I'm like, and I have DMs from every reporters, and I'm like, what the bejesus, you can imagine you wake up and you go, you usually might have 2 emails and maybe one tweet, your entire thing, ding, 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 and in a language you don't read. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? And it turns out this had blown up in Thailand because the particular company had a few issues before with data breaches and never announced them and whatever, and anyway, or may have done that. I don't know. I just don't want to be getting sued again. So what happened then was, over the course of the next couple of days, I was inundated with reporters asking for information, Thai citizens asking, could they sue the company? Could I find their data? Could I help them get secure? And I said, I have not seen anything bar one ID card. And I've notified them and the thing's closed, so I don't know. And I have no copy of the data. I deleted everything off the data and I just don't have it. It's not mine. And they were like, okay. So on Monday morning, TrueMove were invited, there was a whole stuff on the Standard and all the other places going on. TrueMove were invited in front of the NBTC, which is the National Broadcasting and Telecommunications Commission in Thailand. Now, I happened to be doing training with a gentleman back here by the name of Lars Cora and his teams, and there's a guy here named Christian who was also working side by side with me at the time. And I was in full panic mode. I could not deal with the stress of this. I didn't know what to do. I thought I was going to lose my job. They were, I got news clips where, most Norwegians cannot pronounce my first name. Okay? But the Thai guys automatically got my name perfectly. I was very impressed. Because all I could hear was Niall Merrigan, and I was like, this is pretty cool. And I was freaking out because they were, the reports coming out of Thailand were that these guys are going to sue you. And I was like, panic, panic, panic. Ever mentioned Scott goes, what are they going to do? What's the worst? They can sue you? And I was like, yes, they're going to try to. I'd like to see them try. And I was worried. I was extremely worried. My wife was like, are you okay? I said, I'm panicking. I don't know what to do. I'm convinced I'm going to lose my job. I'm convinced this is going to wreck international careers and stuff. And eventually I went to my boss and I said, I've done a very silly thing. And I sat down with him and he's a super cool guy. And he goes, what happened? I said, I did this. And you just see, he goes, that sounds so cool. You okay, man? Seriously, what's wrong? He goes, you've been drinking. And he goes, first off, did you do it on our corporate laptop? And I went, no, I'm not that stupid. Brilliant. Number 2, I said, I did it on my own gear on a VPN. And I was like, He goes, this will be amazing. This will be a cool story. I'm like, so I'm not getting fired. Oh, hell no, this will be brilliant. I'm like, oh, thank God. So I calmed down at that point. And it was, over the next couple of days, there was a lot still back and forth. Eventually what happened was this. They filed a police report, okay? This is cool, because this is my claim to fame now. It says, an unauthorized person had accessed the company's computer system and the data inside since early March 2018 to April 12th, 2017. I don't know how they did that, but okay. It might have been a translation error there. The computer system is used for storing the company's transaction data. Okay, cool. The computer system was protected by authorizing only a specific person to gain access to it, aka everyone. The unauthorized person was never given permission, didn't need it. The company believes the unauthorized person is highly skilled in an electronic system. Thank you very much. He used devices, helpers, or tools to gain visibility and then access the company's computer system. The company knew of the event because the unauthorized person told them about it. Worst hacker ever. Got your data. It's like, you know, where you go to the kids, I got your nose. I went back. So it continues on, and this is the extent of what happened. Then it just stopped, and I was thinking, thank God this is all over me. It was mega stressful. Now, for me, I look back at this now and I laugh, but the advice I will give to you is when you're dealing with Asian companies where loss of face is considered worse than a data breach, don't go and call them out on internet. What I should have done, Scott, by the way, you've learned this now. This is where you're going to learn something. What I should have done was contact the Thai CERT, their Computer Emergency Response Team. Every country has one of these national certs. Norway has, like, for example, Kraft CERT. It has NorCERT, for example. And let them deal with it. This is something I should have told myself before all this happened. So if you're going to learn nothing, when you're dealing with an international incident, talk to the CERT. They will do all the work. They have that brand and authority that people will listen to them. Unfortunately, with my brand, they didn't know who I was. I was a random Irish guy on the internet. And when this happened, it would have made more sense for me to go and talk to this. It would have provided a lot less stress. I would have been a lot more comfortable because they would have been dealing with it. And it's a very important thing to learn. You can go out, and some companies will get very hurt over this. I think, is it Troy has done the 5 stages of data breach depression? So if you watch this, they go out with, like, they start with is anger, guilt, eventually there's a whole there's like the 5 stages of grief, but for 5 stages of data breach. And very often it's anger. Starts off straight away, anger. How dare you go access my system when you shouldn't have done it? I found it via Google, dude. You know, Google Dork or something. And you're like, okay. And then they'll eventually go bargaining. You know, if you don't say anything, we'll give you $50,000. If you give us back our data, we'll give you money. Eventually it'll end up with acceptance where we're going, and they'll go, our systems were broken into. No personal data was released, and all credit card data is safe. We value our integrity, etc. You know, and you'll get that standard issue email that comes out after every single data breach. What I felt in the weeks after this for this particular company was, you don't deserve to be on the internet. You are so silly. You're so stupid. It's just, oh my God, what are you doing? It took me about a couple of weeks to get used to the idea that I had done something right and I had done something wrong at the same time. I didn't do what I was supposed to do in the correct way. I had done everything responsibly, but what I hadn't taken into consideration was local culture and norms. Because I was expecting to be like, you go tell a company, you've left stuff on the internet, you should tidy that up. Most people go, thanks man, don't tell anyone. I said, I'm still telling people, but you've got a chance to clean it up and get ahead of the game. Okay, all right. Other people, this was a very difficult thing. So if you're going to learn nothing, when you're going to dealing with companies who have quite big legal departments or quite big exposure limits, if you don't want to deal with the hassle of all the other stuff, send it into the CERT first. They'll take care of it, and you can go sit down and relax and drink your coffee. Or you can also rely on your network of friends, your network of your team, etc. I was very lucky. I had Christian who managed to take over one of my trainings for that day because I was panicking like hell. And it was very difficult, but it's something you should learn, and not everything will go right within this business. The things that we have in the country today that we need to kind of do is we need to build the security cultures up so that it becomes normal for people to say, I want to do things safely. Can you imagine driving without a seatbelt? Anyone imagine driving without a seatbelt? Anyone feel safe driving without a seatbelt? You. I remember in Ireland in 2001, there was uproar because it became mandatory for people to wear seatbelts. Taxi drivers were complaining that they would be restricted in their movements. And I said, that's what a seatbelt does. It restricts you when you stop suddenly. You know? It's not speed that kills, it's the smell. Sorry, there's a very dodgy Norwegian joke for those in the audience. Something else I learned. I'll explain it to you later when you're older. The Norwegian for speed is fart. Just that's where there you go. It was quite cool. But the thing is, now it's the norm that you wear a seatbelt. Like if I get into a car and I don't wear a seatbelt, I feel there's something wrong. And I find it very funny because you find certain parts of the older generation will not put a seatbelt on. They'll have the seatbelt behind them. And if you've ever seen that, I will not start the car. I'll be like, come on, put the seatbelt on. Why? Because you need to have the seatbelt on. Oh, I don't need a seatbelt. I've never needed a seatbelt. And I usually at that point, I'll speed up and I'll slap the brakes. And then I'll say, now, do you need a seatbelt? I'll wear a seatbelt with you, all right. May not be the best way I just show them the context. We talked about showing the bigger picture. When we're building teams, build across proficiencies, build also with the future in mind, build and create teams that will work good together. That means looking at their skill levels and putting them in appropriately. And when you're dealing with international incidents, don't panic like I did. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been my opinion piece on building security culture, building teams, and creating international security incidents. Thank you so much.